Have you ever heard someone say, after everything I've done for you, and suddenly, you felt like the worst person in the world? You weren't yelling. You weren't being unkind. You were just trying to speak up, or say no, and somehow you ended up feeling guilty, selfish, even ashamed. And they? They made it sound like they were hurt, but something about it felt off. That's not love. That's emotional manipulation wearing a mask. Let's talk about guilt tripping, the kind that hides behind sweet words, family loyalty, or romantic devotion. It doesn't always sound cruel. In fact, sometimes it sounds loving. I just worry about you because I care. You know how much I've sacrificed. If you really loved me, you'd understand. It's subtle. And for women like us, women raised to keep the peace, to care for others first, to be the emotional glue in every relationship, it can slip right past our guard. I want to say this clearly, in case no one ever has. You are not selfish for setting boundaries. You are not cold for saying no. You are not ungrateful for needing space. I once spoke to a woman in her 60s, we'll call her Diane, who said something that stuck with me. She told me, I raised 3 kids, took care of my mother till she passed, never asked for anything. But the moment I told my son I couldn't babysit his twins every weekend, he said, "Wow. After everything we've done for you." And I sat in the kitchen and cried. Not because she was guilty, but because she was tired of being made to feel guilty just for having limits. That kind of guilt? It's not a sign that you've done something wrong. It's often a sign that someone's trying to control your behavior, by twisting your emotions. And here's the tricky part, guilt tripping often comes from people we love. Our children. Our siblings. Our partners. Even friends or coworkers. So when it happens, it feels confusing. Because part of us thinks, maybe they're right, maybe I am being too much. You're not. You're human. And you are allowed to have needs, even if it disappoints someone else. Let me share another example. A woman I met at a support group, let's call her Carla, talked about her ex-husband. For 25 years, anytime she wanted to spend money on herself, even something small, like a new coat or a weekend with girlfriends, he'd say, "Must be nice to have that luxury." She said it always made her feel selfish. So she stopped doing things for herself altogether. Looking back, she told me, it wasn't about the coat. It was about the power. He knew exactly how to make me feel like I didn't deserve anything he didn't approve of. That's guilt tripping. And it's not a joke. It's not harmless. It chips away at your sense of self, one small emotional withdrawal at a time. And sometimes, it sounds like love. That's what makes it so hard to recognize. Sometimes a grown child says, "Well, I guess I know where I stand now, after you say you can't lend money again." Sometimes a partner sighs and says, "Forget it. I'll just go alone," when you've made other plans. Sometimes a parent says, "It's fine. I'll manage," somehow, even though they've just made you feel like a terrible daughter for having your own life. These comments aren't about connection. They're about control. Real love allows space for boundaries. Real love says, "Thank you for telling me how you feel, even if I don't like it." It doesn't use shame as a leash. I want you to take a breath and let this land. You don't have to earn love by overgiving. You don't have to prove your loyalty by carrying emotional burdens that don't belong to you. You have the right to choose peace over guilt. Even when the guilt sounds like love. If any part of you is thinking, "But what if they get mad? What if I lose the relationship?" That's real. I hear you. The fear is real. Because when we've been trained to prioritize harmony, even unhealthy harmony, choosing ourselves can feel like breaking something. But you're not breaking anything. You're healing. And healing often looks like saying, "I hear that you're disappointed. But I'm not changing my mind." Or, "I love you. But I'm not available to talk right now." Or simply, "No." That one word, spoken kindly but firmly, can be a full sentence. And it can be the start of freedom. You know what's interesting? Sometimes the people who guilt trip us the most are the same ones who preach about love, loyalty, or family values. And they might even believe they love us. But love without respect is just control in a prettier package. Let's look at how that plays out, because it's sneaky. Picture this. You're in your 60s. You've worked hard all your life. Raised kids, held jobs, kept the house going. You've done the birthdays, the holidays, the caregiving. And now, finally, you want time for you. Maybe you want to travel. Or just rest. Or say no without giving a long explanation. But suddenly, someone close to you, maybe your grown child, your sister, even your partner, drops a line like, "I guess now that you're free, you don't need us anymore." Or, "Must be nice to be so selfish." Or the classic, "If mom were still alive, she'd never act like this." Oof. That kind of guilt lands deep. It doesn't just question your actions. It questions your heart. And that's exactly the point. Guilt tripping, when disguised as love, isn't about helping you grow. It's about keeping you small, keeping you in a role that benefits them, not you. And here's what's powerful: the moment you see it for what it is, you can start to loosen its grip. You might not be able to change how someone else behaves. But you can choose how you respond. Here's something I invite you to try: when someone lays on the guilt, pause. Ask yourself, if I didn't feel guilty right now, what would I actually want to do? That question cuts through the fog. Because guilt tripping thrives in confusion. It thrives in self-doubt. But clarity? That's its worst enemy. Let's say your daughter says, "I just thought you'd want to help with the kids." I mean, you're not working anymore. And part of you panics: should I cancel my plans? Am I being a bad mom? A bad grandma? But stop and breathe. Ask yourself, if I didn't feel pressured, what would I choose? Maybe you'd say, "I'd love to help sometimes. But this weekend, I've made plans for myself. Let's find another day." That's not unloving. That's adult to adult. And if they respond with more guilt? That tells you something too. Someone who truly respects you won't try to control you with shame. They might feel disappointed. That's okay. But disappointment isn't the same as manipulation. Let me tell you a quick story. There was a woman I worked with named Helen. She was 68, retired, and had finally started painting again, something she'd loved in her 20s but gave up after marriage and kids. Every Tuesday, she took a class and called it her sacred time. But her sister, who lived nearby, kept calling her every Tuesday morning to just chat, and would get icy if Helen didn't answer. One week, Helen finally picked up and said, "Is everything okay?" Her sister replied, "Well, I guess you're too busy for family now." That line hit hard. But instead of folding, Helen calmly said, "You're important to me. So is my art. I'm happy to talk, but Tuesdays are my painting days. Let's talk tomorrow?" She told me afterward. I felt shaky. But proud. For the first time, I didn't let the guilt win. That's what reclaiming your voice sounds like. Sometimes it's quiet. But it's strong. Now, let's talk about how guilt tripping shows up in romantic relationships. Especially as we age. You might be dating again. Or maybe in a long-term partnership that's grown controlling over time. And suddenly, your partner starts saying things like, "I just don't feel loved when you're not available." Or, "If you cared, you'd want to spend all your time with me." Or even, "I guess I'll just be alone, like always." These aren't expressions of love. They're emotional pressure. And you don't owe anyone your constant availability to prove your love. Real love makes space for both people to breathe. It doesn't force closeness by making you feel guilty for wanting solitude, independence, or your own interests. So, what can you do when guilt shows up dressed as affection? You name it. Gently, calmly, without attacking. Just name the feeling for yourself. Like this: "That comment makes me feel guilty, and I need to understand why." Or, I care about you deeply. But I don't feel okay being pressured to do something out of guilt. These are simple phrases, but they draw a powerful line. And yes, some people will push back. Because if they've relied on guilt to keep you in place, they'll feel uncomfortable when that no longer works. But their discomfort is not your emergency. Let that sink in. Their disappointment doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're finally choosing you. And I want to remind you, choosing yourself is not selfish. It's sacred. Especially for women over 60 who've spent decades giving and giving and giving, there is nothing wrong with finally making room for your joy, your voice, your limits. If you've been guilt-tripped for years, this shift won't feel easy at first. That's okay. You're not doing it wrong. You're just doing something new. One choice at a time, one no at a time, one deep breath at a time, you're rebuilding your relationship with yourself. And that's a relationship worth protecting. So maybe right now, you're sitting with that quiet realization. This has been happening to me for years. And you're not sure where to go from here. Because guilt-tripping disguised as love, it's not just about a few mean words or uncomfortable moments. It's often woven deep into our relationships, into family, marriage, even friendships that have lasted decades. Sometimes, when you try to stand up for yourself, you feel like you're betraying the people you love. But let me offer you this thought. Protecting your peace isn't betrayal. It's honesty. If you've been walking on eggshells around someone who says they love you, but uses guilt to control you, you're not crazy. You're not dramatic. You're finally waking up to what your gut has known all along: love should not feel like pressure. Or fear. Or obligation. And no matter how old you are, no matter how long it's been this way, you can begin again. You're allowed to say, I don't accept guilt as a form of love. I won't explain myself over and over just to be forgiven. I deserve connection without conditions. Let's talk about how this might look in your daily life. Maybe your son calls and says, I guess you don't care about the grandkids anymore. Instead of rushing to fix it or over-explain, you pause. You might say, I love you and the kids. But I also have my own life now. Let's talk when you're ready to speak with respect. Or maybe an old friend says, you've changed, with that sharp tone that says, I don't like the new you. And instead of shrinking, you smile and reply, yes, I've changed. And I'm proud of the woman I'm becoming. That's not rude. That's reclaiming. And it takes courage, I know. Because the guilt doesn't disappear overnight. It shows up in little whispers: you're being too harsh. You're letting people down. They'll think you don't care. But here's what I want you to remember. You've spent enough of your life carrying everyone else's emotions. Their comfort. Their approval. Their needs. Now, it's time to carry your own truth. Even if your voice shakes. Even if you're the first in your family to break the cycle. Even if not everyone understands. Your peace matters. Your boundaries matter. You matter. And if you've never heard this before, or just need to hear it again, let me say it clearly. Love does not punish. Love does not manipulate. Love does not make you feel small to keep you close. Real love makes room for your no. It honors your space. It's not afraid of your boundaries, it respects them. So, if you've been told your whole life that love and guilt go hand in hand, I invite you to unlearn that, starting today. You are not too old to rewrite the story. You're just getting to the part where you finally take the pen. This next chapter? It doesn't have to be about walking on eggshells or apologizing for your needs. It can be soft, steady, and free from the guilt that was never yours to begin with. If this spoke to you, I'd love for you to share in the comments. Maybe tell me, what's one thing you're letting go of today? Or one boundary you're ready to honor? And if you want more support on this healing journey, you can subscribe, gently, no pressure. Just a warm invitation to keep walking this path together. Because you deserve peace. You deserve relationships where your yes is free, and your no is safe. And it's not too late to claim that life. Not even close.